On the topic of thinking that ignoring things and it's going to go away is the best option, what do you tell to children who receive death threats? Because that happens. And it's specifically happening right now to trans kids. Here, let's go ahead and take a look. You and me together. Title of this is Transgender 4th grader Kai Shapley gets death threats after testifying before Texas legislature. Let's take a listen. You need volume to listen.
Well, it is to travel. Can we talk about how horrible it is to travel while being transgender sometimes? I always have immense anxiety leading up to going through security. And this being said, I totally recognize the privilege of having all of my documents correct. So the gender marker on my license, for example, says female. But going through the scanner, there's a male scanner and a female scanner in the TSA checkpoint. And looking at me, you know, I look like a woman and I am a woman, so that's great. I love having cis-assuming privilege when I feel unsafe, such as in an airport. But going through the scanner, I always have an anomaly between my legs that sets off the alarm. And so she asked me if I had anything in my pants, and I told her no. And she's like, well, maybe it's just like the metal on your shorts, so let's scan you again. So I did, and then it set it off again. And I was like, look, I'm trans, just pat me down. And her solution was, do you want to be scanned as a man instead? I didn't, but I ended up doing it, and then my boobs set off the scanner because of course. So I tried to make a joke of it. I was like, oh yeah, there's a lot of plastic in there, it's fine. So then she was like, okay, well, we have to pat you down. And she was like, do you want a man to do it? I said, no, absolutely not.
So the video itself is not specifically about the topic at hand. So we're going to talk about the topic at hand, but that does bring up a very interesting point, though. What happens when you're a trans person going through life in the States just normally, but because you exist as trans, there are things that you're having to deal with constantly that cis people don't have to deal with. So, let's get into the article at hand. Kai Shapley, a transgender 4th grader who testified in front of the Texas Senate on April 12th, has begun receiving death threats for her testimony. Her mother, Kimberly Shapley, said, the child testified in front of the Texas Senate Committee on State Affairs regarding Senate Bill 1646, a bill that would redefine child abuse to include consenting to or assisting in the administering or supplying of puberty suppression prescription or drugs or cross-sex hormones to a child. Now, I think I probably should point out to everybody that we already do this, right? We already use puberty blockers for a variety of purposes that do not include transgender kids. And these purposes do include children. They are things like, hey, child has early onset breast cancer. We use puberty blockers to try to mitigate that so we can come up with a solution as we are going. These are things that we already do. So when I read shit like this, I read it as, oh, we just deny trans kids medical care. But cis kids are fine. Cis kids, they can get whatever medical care they need. Trans kids, fuck them. Oh, but since you're in the States, make sure that you cut off their foreskins. It's very important. Apparently. Channel Pup has a whole thing about the foreskin thief going up later, because why not? Children's books about stealing foreskins. Anyways. So the bill would criminalize parents, guardians, and medical workers and pharmacists who help trans children obtain medically approved treatments for either physically transitioning into their self-identified gender or delaying puberty, which is the purpose of the puberty blocker. The puberty blocker is supposed to be there to give you time. That's the purpose of it. And we've done a shit ton of study and work on puberty blockers because, again, we've been using these things since before they were being used to help trans kids. I don't know if I have to keep on getting into that fact. I don't know if I have to keep on hammering that fact in. That it's not just trans kids that this is used for. This is used for cis people as well. But I digress. Let's continue. In her testimony, Kai Shapley told the committee that I do not like spending my free time asking adults to make good choices. Texas legislators have been attacking me since pre-kindergarten, and I am in 4th grade now. She also rebuked Republican State Senator Charles Perry, who said that he supported the bill on religious grounds. Shapley then responded to that, saying that God made me and God loves me for who I am, and God did not make a mistake. So, let's get this very straight. If you, as a legislator, try to argue that it is on religious grounds that you're making the decision for a child, get the fuck out of politics. No, seriously, get out of politics. Stop using your religion to enact legislation for people who probably don't even share your religion. Please. Not everyone's Christian. Not everyone should be Christian. Some people are pagan. Some people are atheist. Some people are Hindu. Some people are Muslim. And you know what? Your beliefs about religion are not normative as a politician if you are trying to use those beliefs to change the law. I don't care. I don't. I really don't. So, let's get back to the conversation at hand. In an April 20th tweet, Kimberly Shapley said that she had forbidden her daughter from using any one of the child's social media accounts following multiple threats. The messages and comments are directed at a 10-year-old, and they've been horrifying, Kimberly Shapley wrote. Most recent, dumb idiot, get murdered, you disgusting little brat, on her YouTube channel. People are literally telling a child that they deserve to be killed. Ah, yes, but she should just ignore it and that'll go away, right? 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 No, seriously, this whole conversation is about this shit. It is not the victim's fault for merely existing. Ignoring bullies and they will go away only really works in a world where bullies are not coming for you because of what you are, because of how you exist. I can ignore bullies because I'm a cis dude. For the most part, I can ignore them. But there are certain things that I cannot deal with, like baldness. Eventually, I'm going to be bald. No way around it. Can't help it. Somebody makes fun of me for that? Neat. But if somebody's telling me to kill myself because of what I happen to be, I can't help that. I can't help what I am. And if I'm getting those things happening to me repeatedly over and over and over, and they never stop, and they're always from new people going on and on down, at what point am I allowed to do something about that? At what point am I supposed to just take the harassment, take the mental health shit, and just get crapped on? Continuing on in the article, and this is not just aimed at you, Held Rider. This is an article that I was already going to be covering, but this gave me a very convenient segue into it. The tweet read, Kai's mom here. She's not allowed on any of her social media accounts for now. The messages and comments directed at a 10-year-old have been horrifying. Most recently, dumb idiot get murdered, you discussed a little right on her YouTube channel. Amber Briggle, another woman who testified to the committee in support of her transgender son, said that she and her family have also faced death threats because of her testimony. In a tweet, Briggle said that they filed a police report over threatening voice messages. She blamed Texas Republican legislators for encouraging the attacks. She tweeted that hashtag Texas legislators did this. She wrote that in an April 20th tweet using a hashtag for the Texas legislator. They launched the attack and their goons could not wait to strike. State legislators were the ones who lit the match. The people who were elected to keep us safe and protected here in Texas are the same people who are putting my family in danger. And these same douche canoes are bullying trans kids, both online and IRL. The harassment these kids get from grown-ass adults while bravely testifying in Austin is enough to make you want to cut a man. The death threats these children are getting online is shameful. So, I want you to consider, for a moment, before we go any further, I want you to consider a question. And I want you to answer in the comment section if you're watching this over on YouTube. At what point, how much verbal harassment must one take before they are allowed to respond with violence? At what point is the mental duress so high that you are allowed to defend yourself? And mind you, the people who are harassing you do not have the same weaknesses that you do. So responding to them with words is not going to do much at all. Where is the divide? How much abuse must a victim suffer before they are allowed to defend themselves? And you can't just say, get up and walk away. If this is happening online as well, you can't just get up and walk away. If you isolate yourself from all social media and create an island for yourself, you are also cutting yourself off from support. You are forcing a person to deny support networks. And mind you, even if you do not have access to social media, that does not necessarily mean that those words will not find their way to you. Harassers, bullies, and all kinds of people have the ability to get their hateful words to you one way or another. So my question to you, the audience, is where is the line? At what point do you have the ability to defend yourself? I understand legally there is no point currently. And I understand that it's a complicated question because every single possible answer to the question comes with a myriad of issues. If only the victim gets to choose it and somebody personally labels themselves as a victim and lies about being a victim, they could attack somebody without actually having something happen. If somebody hallucinates somebody attacking them, they have the ability to attack. I understand there's a lot of counters to being allowed to physically defend yourself from verbal attacks. But I want to see that discussion. I want to see the points that are brought up there. Because I personally don't know. I don't have a position on when someone should be allowed to respond physically to verbal issues. And again, don't hit me with this bullshit of just get up and walk away. Get up and walk away stopped working 20 years ago when the entirety of society went online. When somebody was able to dox you and get people to your house to enact death threats on you in your safe space. When people started being able to patrol other people's houses based off of online information. Get up and walk away stopped working the minute that people realized you could dox people and swat them. Continuing on with the article. Conservatives and conservative media often distort information about medical care for transgender kids, according to Mary Romano, a medical doctor from the Vanderbilt University Medical Center who specializes in trans youth. Parents of trans children are often encouraged to let their child explore their gender and see a therapist long before a doctor gives them any transition-related medical care. When a transgender child reaches puberty, they can receive puberty blockers, medication which delay the irreversible physical changes that come with puberty. The medication's risk for pubescent children is incredibly small, which we've gone over on my channel over and over and over and over and over and over. Numerous studies have shown that familial support and trans-related medical care significantly reduce the mental anguish and suicide attempts among trans youth. Bills such as SB 1646 attempt to insert legislators into private medical family matters for the sake of scoring cheap political points. That was by Gillian Bransletter, a spokesperson with the National Center for Transgender Equality. And that is it for the article. So I've posed some questions to everyone. Question number 1 was, at what point should somebody be able to physically respond to verbal abuse? At what point is somebody allowed to? And my secondary point was largely that this shit happening is evidence that you can't just get up and walk away. I want you to consider somebody in this position, a child in school. They can't avoid being in school, and to argue that they should be homeschooled is to argue essentially through a classist framework that the parent has the means to homeschool. Not every parent has the means to homeschool. So let's go ahead and operate hypothetically within the world where this child does have to go to school. If they ignore all of this online harassment, if they ignore all of it, but all of it makes its way to the other kids at the school, and kids are evil. Kids are fucking awful. And they begin enacting all of the same abuse towards them in the school. At what point should they be allowed to do something about that? Because you can't just make yourself an island. You're just trading one type of mental anguish for another. So at what point do we just say that this is not okay? And what solutions do we have where that's concerned? I want to hear your thoughts on there. I want to hear your thoughts about that. Another question that I would have is, what do you think is ultimately going to happen in these situations? What do you think the mindset of somebody who harasses a child is? That's a question that I have for everybody in the audience, because I am legitimately curious. I want to get into the mindset of somebody who's willing to tell a 10-year-old to kill themselves. As someone who was once a 10-year-old, I don't know what I would have done had somebody legitimately told me, and it was one person, two people, 100 people, to kill myself. As somebody who already has issues with suicidal ideation, I don't know. So I want to hear from you guys. What would you have done in that situation as a 10-year-old dealing with that shit? What do you think should be done to prevent this from happening in the future? And what mindset do you think an adult doing this to a child has? I also want to thank Wisley1117 and Moth Axis for following during this segment. I will end with saying, if you enjoyed my content, please consider supporting me. There's a link to my Patreon in the description. There's also other ways to support me down there as well. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And as always, everyone, insert end of video tagline here.